Hello. Welcome to
Well,
the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Adam Robin, and I am with a good friend. Well, not a good friend, a new friend, Miss Norene Christensen. Hey, Norene, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm fantastic. A little bit of background. So we have our Facebook group. That's amazing. Anybody who's listening should join. And Noreen is super active in the Facebook group. And like I'm watching that Facebook group like a hawk. So I can kind of see the people who are in the game, who are in the trenches, who are playing, who are thinking about what they're doing. And Noreen, as I saw you commenting and engaging in the group, I noticed like, man, this lady, she's got some things figured out. So we jumped on a phone call, right? We jumped on a quick call and I started learning your story. And it became very apparent pretty quickly that you were a rock star owner
Thank you.
and somebody who had a pretty cool story, a unique story that I thought would be super valuable to share and share with the listeners. So tell us about you, Noreen. Tell us where you're from and tell
Um,
us a little bit about where you came from and how you started your practice.
do I have to admit where I'm from?
You can lie. Nobody will know.
No, I grew up in Northwest New Jersey. It's kind of the afterthought of the rest of the state, super rural. Grew up working on a fruit vegetable farm and went to school in Boston. Closed my eyes, pointed on a map, took my first job in Baltimore. Had never been there before. Worked at a large teaching hospital, which was great to learn medicine,
Yeah.
and then moved over to a sports medicine clinic. I closed my eyes, pointed on a map, or no, I didn't. That was to get to Baltimore. I went skiing in Utah for 10 days, and I didn't
Nice.
even know where Utah was, and went back and gave my boss a year's notice. I'm like, I'm not going to be here next ski season. So I moved out to Utah without a job, piecemealed some jobs together until I got a job up in Park City at a sports medicine clinic and part-time down in Salt Lake at the orthopedic specialty hospital, which was fabulous. So I got there in 90 and managed care was really strong then, and I was getting very frustrated having to grovel for all the visits I could get for somebody with a major injury. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to leave the profession, or I'm going to go to Moab and open up my own clinic and do my own thing, or I'm going to leave the state. And I'd ridden my bicycle around Alaska for 3 weeks, and we used to get the weekly PT bulletin. And I saw a job in Alaska and had 5 phone interviews, got the job, and said, "Great, where's Ketchikan?" And they're like, "Well, you better look at a map. You can't drive here from there."
Hmm.
So it's a 2.5 day ferry to Ketchikan, and that was a great job. I was there to help develop some orthopedic programs, and the community was great. I was one of 3 climbers on the mountain on the island. So I became the high angle team leader for search and rescue. Got to know the Coast Guard guys really well through that. But my heart was in the Mountain West. And so I committed a year, I stayed a year and a half, and then I moved to Jackson, Wyoming, and talked my way into a job at a hospital in Jackson. They weren't hiring, and I was kind of cocky and told them that they needed me and I
Hmm.
would be their busiest therapist. And then 95 and 98, 97, I left the hospital and just felt like I could do it better and opened up my
Hmm.
own clinic in January of 98. And I don't know, through all the different clinics and facilities, I saw what I liked, I saw what I didn't like, I saw how patients were handled, I saw how employees were handled. And my mission was just to do that completely differently.
I love how skiing is the thing that got you to move.
Yeah.
You're pretty big fan of skiing, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I would drive from Baltimore to Vermont just about every weekend and drive home at like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning to be at work by 8.
Hmm. So we just got back from Keystone. We
Oh,
went to
nice.
Keystone. We went to Keystone for we skied for 4 days. It's man, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Super fun time. So you've had a journey, you've been all over. Then you opened up a clinic
Mhm.
in Wyoming, correct?
In Jackson Hole, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Tell us about that. How'd you get started?
By my father telling me to stay in one place and maybe I'd get married.
Mm,
So I knew I didn't want to stay at the hospital. My 5-year plan coming out of school is I was gonna have a clinic in Vermont, New Hampshire with a climbing wall, work with the US ski team. And so, it took me 10, 11 years to do that. Um, I'm not a good corporate employee, and I just wanted the culture to be completely different than where I had worked, that the patient was the center of the relationship and that education was key. Educating them on the call, the first call, educating them about their benefits and how it works, and the billing team educating them, front desk educating them on scheduling and the importance of their plan of care, and then the PTs. I've been really fortunate. I would say 96% of my PTs that I've hired are lifelong learners, and they educate the patient, and it's a dynamic. I like a very dynamic, somewhat loud, fast-paced environment, and the patients love it. And that we've been treating a lot of the same people for 26 years.
hmm There's a few things that you said, two things actually, that really stuck out to me.
Uh-oh.
Number one, you said when you were interviewing for that hospital position, you said I convinced them that they needed me,
Yeah.
right? Then you said I felt like I could do it better. So like
Right.
there is a savagery and like a piece of there's like some confidence inside of you that's hard to explain. Where does that come from?
Well, my mother died when I was super young. And despite my father remarrying, I was still I had older brothers and sisters, but still I kind of had to survive. And then when you have older brothers who pummel you all the time, you
Mhm.
learn to survive. I've always played sports, and I think I've always have been confident in what I do. And I remember one time I went to boarding school and I didn't fit in with the cool kids. And I was sitting in my window looking out at everybody. And I remember it was senior year going, you know what? I don't care. This is who I am and this is what I'm driving for. And so I think I still do that in my life.
There's a lot of power in that too. You know it. That's when that's when people become their most bold, authentic, powerful self when they realize who they are and they actually step into that. And it's like a lot of things happen.
Mhm.
So that's awesome. Okay, so you opened up the. So I wrote down toughness. You're a tough cookie. I wrote down toughness, right?
My husband says, don't meet me in a dark alley.
yeah, Noreen will take you out. So what I think would be fun is and for those who are listening, Noreen's a rock star, and what we're gonna do is just kind of uncover her story. And what I want to do is just kind of learn a little bit about your journey, and then we're going to write down your recipe for success through your story.
Sure.
The first clinic you opened up, I'm assuming you opened up like most people, with a lot of hard work, a lot of just late hours, long hours, hard work. So tell us about your startup phase and how that was.
Yeah, startup phase, it was just me and a front desk tech. Um, I was there a lot. I didn't mind. I was loving it. I still it opened up in January, but I still took the time to ski, 2 days a week, full days and 2 half days. I actually had a ski mountaineering trip scheduled that June, so I'd be gone for 3.5 weeks. So I knew I needed to hire. So I was able to get one of my coworkers from the hospital to come join me.
Mhm.
And then my dad's like, you can't leave all month. I'm like, yes, I can.
Do what I want to
He's
do,
gonna
Dad.
die. So,
I'm
I mean, I think my work-life balance was a little better early phase, but I also was doing all the wrong things. I was undercharging. I really didn't know my costs, and we were giving great therapy, but I was getting it handed to me financially. In 2004, I met Paul Martin of Martin Healthcare Advisors at the PPS meeting in Vancouver. And so I signed up with him, and his team came out, interviewed all of the therapists in the group, went through our systems, went through our billing. At the time I had it, just a local person do our billing. And that's when I got introduced to KPIs. And I was just like, what's that? And what does that mean? And so they helped me set up my budgets every year, and what our goals were. But I still didn't have a real firm knowledge of what that meant. So I didn't have the ability to coach up my professionals in their coding and all that. And, you know, and I'm working full time with them. I had a big, heavy patient load. Actually didn't come step out of the clinic till like a year ago.
Oh, wow.
And I do love the clinic. I wasn't working in the clinic 40 hours a week. I was like down to 2 days a week or 3 days, but it really just got to be too much. And, you know, the old work on your business or work in the business, you're going to be better if you're working on it. So when I got a new consultant with Martin Group, then I really started understanding units per visit, visits per hour, you know, referrals and visits per referral. So then and he would help me coach with help me coach my PTs. And then we're constantly trying to improve front desk and collections, and we weren't great at that. We had our EMR at the time was doing our billing. This is our second EMR at the time. And they were great at first, but then they started cherry picking, and I'm watching my 120 plus go to like 30%. And I'm like, you can't do this. And so we fought, and my front desk person was, I can do this better than them. I said, okay. So we changed DMRs. She took on billing. My 90-day plus, it doesn't break 3% anymore.
That's amazing.
And one of our patients, we hired in Alpine to be our front desk, and she is really great coaching and support and ideas. And so I worked with her a lot on developing systems, and we did D-Bills program. So any of my front desks that come on, they have to do D-Bills program. And then we have very specific systems for the activities of the front desk and the information we get that they upload and how they collect. And we kind of give them goals every month or every quarter for collections. And it's almost like a little game between all of them. It's like, how are you doing? How are you doing? Well, do you need help? Are you behind? Do you need help? I have time. So they want to see each other be successful. Then I crawled out of what rock I lived under, and I found the PT Owners podcast like 2.5 years ago. And my one clinic's an hour, 10-minute drive, and I would just binge. I had you guys on 1.5. You really talk fast, 1.5. And just listening to everything, I'm like, oh my God, a coach. What a great idea.
Yeah.
Listening about Will Humphreys and, recruitment in the richest county in the US and the highest cost per living is rough. And so I went through his recruiting. I got myself an executive coach. And the last year and a half just has been magical. I mean, we were growing significantly every year, significantly. Sometimes 25%, 18%. And so I'm like, okay, I have to come out of the clinic, and I have to drive this boat. And I've had my leadership. I think my first clinic director was in 2012. I put a clinic director in immediately when I opened up each other clinic. And then as we kept growing, I'm like, okay, before I open up this other clinic, I need to bring in another biller, because that's going to push that volume on them. So let's get this biller up and running and get going on this clinic. So I have 3.5 billers now that manage everything, and they I just did this KPI review with a consultant, and they're like the unicorns. They're just taking names and they're the rock stars. And my manager, that front desk person who I hired that started helping me with the systems, she's the manager of the billing front desk. And she just, it really came down to consistent systems and consistent messaging for the therapists. They get weekly KPIs. We go over twice a month their coding diversity. We look at their payer mix. So if their units per visit are low, maybe they're high in Medicare. If their units per visit are really high, maybe they're high in commercial. But we look at how are they billing per insurance type. So they're not undercoding or overcoding. And are they using the skilled timed units at in a nice diversity? So I heard about a billing company likes the KPI of therapeutic activity and neuro in your mix of coding over a quarter should equal over 50%.
Mhm.
And some of my therapists are and some aren't. And so now we have those graphs that we can really sit with them and show them where their coding diversity is rather than just a bunch of percentages.
So you got into coaching.
Amen.
You got into coaching. You said the guy, Martin, what was the first?
No, well, he's my business advisor,
Okay.
Dave Pierce with
They
Martin Healthcare
yeah.
Advisors.
So
And then I
you
started with Steve Allred from Practice U.
got it. So you started getting into coaching. So, and then your things just changed for you, right? You started changing up your perspectives, trying to shifting up your understanding, shifting up the way that you think, managing your priorities a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, I'm still working on that. But last winter, I was reaching out to everybody. I was desperate. I was talking to, and I'm like, okay, so you sold your practice and now you're a coach. What makes you a good coach?
Right.
You know, where'd you get
Good
your
question.
coaching training? But I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do something. I am just losing it. And I don't have a good grasp or control on a lot of things. There's too many moving parts. And yeah, learning that clarity, doing the Eisenhower matrix, like what can I get rid of and what not. I did try to hire an operations manager, and I'm like, this is what I'm going to teach you. This is what you're going to do. So I can do these things and be more of a benefit for the practice. Unfortunately, I did not ask if he knew how to use Excel. I thought
Kind of have to use that, huh?
yeah,
It's
so
very
we
important.
kind of had to, and I asked him, I'm like, do you feel successful in this position? He said, no, and you've given me every opportunity to learn. And I said, well, is it fair to you? And he said, no. And I said, is it fair to me? And he's like, absolutely not. So we split paths, and I told him, but he was an awesome manager with people, but the operations, the spreadsheets and stuff, that's where I need somebody to present to me.
So let's go back to after, how long did you have your first clinic before you decided to jump to number two, the second clinic?
9 years. So pretty
9 years.
much 9, 10 years.
So what sparked
Probably 10
that?
years.
What sparked that transition? How did that go?
Oh, it's like so easy, except for buying a bunch of equipment. I just found a space. Kaya, my other PT, was totally on board. She was excited. My current front desk person had a daughter who had reception history, or experience, so we hired her. I did not do the most expensive build out because it was a small space, and my goal was only to be in that space for 5 years,
Mhm.
and then move to a bigger space. We immediately started knocking on doors for the physicians. A lot of our patients currently lived in that valley and drove up 45 minutes to see us. So we kind of got that crowd right away. I built all the equipment by myself, which I will never do again. I was crying on a Sunday afternoon looking at the free arm motion machine going, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And did call a friend of mine who's a construction worker. The treadmill had a few leftover bolts and
Mm-hmm,
screws and stuff, and I was like, well, hasn't broken yet.
mm-hmm.
Um, so it was a lot of sweat equity going into it, but word of mouth, and our orthos love us, and so they were stoked that we were down there. And we really only have one ortho team in Jackson. There's another ortho team in that valley, but they're tied in with the hospital. We immediately got the enemy number one from the hospital system, but a lot of their physicians told us flat out, it's like, you guys actually provide therapy. So I don't care what the administrator is telling us, we're referring to you. So, you know, we had quality in more than just establishing the relationship. We would get people that transferred to us that were in therapy for 8 months, and they were only with us 6, 8 weeks because they got better.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, I never had to do this kind of stuff. So, you know, we demonstrated our quality and our professionalism.
So did you have a PT that you opened with, or did you, how did that work? Did you have a guy or a lady that you opened, that you had
Yeah,
to?
that was Kaya, who was my intern, who I hired. And I said, okay, I'm gonna hire you. I'm gonna open up a second clinic, and you're gonna help me open that up and get it running and be the clinic director.
So how long of a time frame was it between that hire and the opening of the second clinic, roughly?
2 months. 2 months.
Wow.
Because I knew she still had another internship after us, and we gave her a job offer. So immediately I started looking at space, and there happened to be a space. And one of my employees knew a guy that could build it out for us, and got some plans written up from an architect, and off we went.
So this was a new grad therapist?
She was a new grad, so she and I worked that clinic together for about 2 years. And then we hired another therapist, and I backed out, and she continued as clinic director.
Way to go. That's amazing. So
I did hire a clinic director, but I fired him after 4 months.
I've always found that that's harder. It's a lot harder to hire a director straight on. Like you have to spend some time with them,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, or her,
He,
whatever.
he was not a good cultural fit, so.
Right. Right. So the third thing I wrote down is strategic hires. Right.
Well,
So like I love that you hired, and this is big, Noreen. This is a big piece because you know maybe some people get this, maybe some people don't, but you had to have a vision, right? Like you had to have a vision that I'm going to hire this person, and then that's going to give me the capacity to open up another clinic, right?
yeah, especially the infrastructure. Like, I wanted to look at the infrastructure first. I mean, do I have the billing team and professional team to open a clinic? So yeah, these hires have been really good. And I'm just looking back, the company from 2020, where we dropped 16% from the previous year. After that, we grew 14%, 28%, and 18%. So in my mind, it's like, okay, we have this volume. We need to get the professionals in. We need to get the billing team in place.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our other interns we hired, he was working part-time in that second clinic and up in the main clinic. And when we opened the third clinic, the goal was to get him out there because the cost of living is lower, and he really loves that area. And so we moved him out there after a year. And he moved out there, then twice a week came to the main clinic, but worked at the other clinic twice a week as well. And now we've had some staff, some shakeup, and now he's the clinic director for that clinic as of this year. And it's growing.
Good
It's a
for you.
slow grower, but it's growing, so that's good. And this year it just seemed to like pop in its
Yeah.
third year, starting its third year.
Good. Good. Yeah. So I love that. I love that you have, going back to the vision, that you're able to see that, wow, I've got this business that's working. All I need is another who, right?
Mhm.
Give me another who, and then I can start pouring into that person, and that's going to give me the capacity to like go and open up my second location.
Yeah.
So there was a strategic hiring process that you had to go through in order to make that happen. So it wasn't just
Either I
like, let
had
me
to go
hire.
through it or I accidentally went through it.
Well, you know what? Maybe you just have it. Maybe just a natural gift. Maybe it's just a natural gift. I mean, you obviously have a lot of passion and a lot of toughness, and you obviously have vision for you and your company. You're willing to invest in yourself, right? You're willing to invest in the company, and that's what it takes. That's what it takes. And you just keep rolling the dice on yourself, and eventually you one hits, and then next thing you know, you got 3 clinics. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And in a way, I've always kind of hung it out there. I do not have a lot of risk adversity, and I think that helps.
Yeah,
Um,
let's talk about that.
if you're a little risk adverse, you're probably going to overthink things and kill your gut and either not follow through to what could have been a very successful thing. Um, but I mean, there is a downside to it being, highly risk tolerant. I can crash and burn with the rest of them. And it's not like I haven't looked at bankruptcy after the 2009 crash. I was down to one therapist, and it was just he and I picking our noses, waiting for people to come in. That put me in a huge amount of debt. Banks didn't want a loan. And, but, it's just grit. It's just putting your nose to the grindstone and getting it done and believing it's going to work. And maybe that's what I do, is just, I believe it's going to work. So I just do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that, there's only a few things that you can really control. And I think that the most important thing that you can control is the people you surround yourself with. Like, if there's one single piece of advice that I like to give young people or young business owners, or even remind myself, it's like, just put yourself in front of getting around good people who are aligned with you and who want to help you go where you want to go. And you did that with your team, and you also did that with your coaches, right? So
Mhm.
like, if you have that, you can almost do anything. You can afford to be more risky when you have that, because
I think
things
so.
typically will work out more often for you.
Like we have for our professionals, like a 4-step interview process. I first sit and chat with them. I like everybody, so I'm not allowed to hire anybody anymore. Then my clinical manager and clinic director for that clinic will do a formal interview. I have a therapist on staff that's like, this is the best job ever. And I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in working here. So then they talk to her, and those two groups will say yay or nay.
Mhm.
And then if they say yay, I'll reach back out and go, well, if you're super interested, I'd love to fly you out and have you spend a day with us and take you to dinner. And, then, for sure are they excited by the environment? And, what kind of person are they? And I share the vision, and the culture of the clinic. They see it, they feel it. And, then that's our little final, are you going to be someone that's going to work with the company and help them grow?
Mhm.
And I feel fortunate. In 26 years, we've had 4 wing nuts. So I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, heck yeah, you're doing good. You're killing it. Tell me about, you said people have a tendency to overthink things.
Oh, my husband's a perfect example.
Yeah, help us with that.
Well,
how do we stop doing that?
how to get out of your own way.
Yeah, how do you get out of your own way? Let's start the podcast over. How do you get out of your own way? If we could, yeah, like, tell us the secret. How does that work?
Gosh, it just popped into my head now. I never thought of it this way, but think of your chronic pain patients that have that fear avoidance of movement,
Mm,
and how much better they feel and how much excited they get when they're like, oh my gosh, I can bend over and it doesn't hurt. Um, I guess it's believing that you can make huge mistakes and no one's gonna die. You might get
right.
in trouble, You know, the IRS might come after you, the banker might be mad at you. But at the end of the day, you go home with your family, you sleep in your own bed, and you wake up and you do it again. I've never actually been a very reflective person, so maybe that's why I can do that. But I think the more you have to think about what you're doing to it, you know, you do. And you have to put your spreadsheets together and it's like, is this going to work? And then you have to look at your environment and the community is like, is there room for you? And can you do it better? Can you provide something different than what's already provided? And if you can check off those boxes, then what's stopping you? Just get it
Go for
done.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even with all that data, there's still no way to be certain with about anything, right? It's
No.
all a risk. It's all a gamble, right? And so all you're using the data to help you objectify your odds, if you
Mhm.
will, right? But at the end of the day, you're no matter how much data or how little data you have, it all comes back to you're gonna have to take a gamble on yourself,
You have to believe in your capacity. So
right?
ski mountaineering, I remember this one mountain we were going up. There were crevasses everywhere, and we were on this really thin kind of ice. We had ski crampons on, and it came to a point, and we had to kick turn around the point, go a little bit further, get over a crevasse, put our skis on our back, get over the crevasse, and then climb up a little bit of ice, and then put your skis back on and go. The guide was nowhere to be found. And I'm like, this is a total no fall zone. So two things can happen. You can believe in your capabilities, focus, and get it done, or you can completely fall apart and you're going to end up falling
Hmm.
and in a no fall zone, and that's not good for anybody. So I think you truly have to believe in your strength, your capacity, your intelligence. You have to believe in yourself.
Yeah. And then I think at some point, correct me if I'm wrong, as you start to build a team, it starts to become less and less dependent on you. And it's more like, hey, I've got to trust my team. Like I've got to believe in my team, right? So your
Yeah,
ability
and I'm
to,
trying to wean my directors off of me. I'm going to be gone the next 2, 3 weeks. And I'm like, look, I'm not in cell service. You're going to have to make decisions, but just remember the mission, the values, and the culture, and base your decisions on that. I totally trust you guys in making the appropriate decisions, and we can talk about it when I come back. Maybe I like it, maybe I don't, but decision's been made.
that's fun. And that gives you so much more freedom.
It's getting me there. Yeah, it is.
It gives you, it helps you let it go.
Mhm.
And then that way you can actually like be happy again.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Instead
tell
of,
you, I am way happier than I was a year ago.
boy, you and me
I
both.
I was a
You and me
hot
both.
mess.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. So I've got four things down
Uh-oh.
that you wrote down that you mentioned. Number one, got to be tough.
Yeah.
This is Norene's recipe.
Yeah.
Toughness, got to be tough. Got to be gritty. Got to get your hands dirty. Number
It
two,
doesn't mean I haven't cried a
yeah, I
little
cry
bit.
too. I'll cry. Hey, I can't remember how many times I've had this. Like, I'm sitting down and, with a glass of wine, talking to my wife, talking about, I'm just going to just sell all the clinics. I'm going to get rid of this stuff. I've been there too. So you got to be tough. Got to have coaching.
Yes. I wish that was around 20 years ago.
By the way, guys or girls, this is me and Norene's second time we've ever spoke. She's not a client of mine. We don't work together. She works with other coaches. Get you a coach. If it's not me or Nathan or anybody, just get you a coach, because if you want to, if you've got to learn, you've got to have that person in your corner, right? So number one, toughness. Number two, coaching. Number three, strategic hiring, right? So not just building your culture, but building your company through the hires that you're making, right? So like, who's your next leader? Who's your next, I don't want to say stepping stone, but who's your next person where you can take this company and like go to the next level with. Like that's who you're looking for, right? Person to help you go from one clinic to two clinics, from two clinics to three clinics. And then number four is taking risks. Stop thinking, less thinking, more doing, right? There's not a whole lot of things that I can think of that get better with more thinking.
Oh, true. But it's educating ourselves. Any consultant, and they come with a price tag. They're priceless for your company. I remember back in 2004 when I started, I'm like, how am I going to afford this?
Mm-hmm.
But then I quickly grew to 4 therapists. So, I mean, we're just not taught the business in PT school. And it's investing in your business and in yourself.
That's amazing. So you've got three clinics now and you're going on vacation. Tell us about your vacation that you're going on.
Oh, I'm doing a 2-week backcountry hut ski mountaineering trip up in a glacier in British Columbia. And then I'll be home a couple of days and then I'll go a week to Hawaii.
That's amazing. Look what you did.
I know.
You did it. Congratulations. Congratulations. Well, Norene, I really appreciate your time. I think your story is amazing. I think you have a unique story. I love your recipe. I think it really excites me. If people wanted to like shoot you an email or maybe connect with you and seek out a little guidance or seek out some support, how would they get in touch with you?
Um, my email is Norene, Norene at fourpinespt.com, which is FOURPINESPT. Our website is Four Pines Physical PT or Physical Therapy, so you can always Google, and then my email address is there. I'm active in the PT Owners Club group, which I find a lot of value in. And I mean, just the podcast, I was like, wow, where have I been and why haven't I listened to this? And I started from number one, and I've probably listened to 95% of the episodes
I
and
did the
learned.
same thing. You
Yeah.
are, Will Humphreys, you mentioned Will the earlier. He's a mentor of mine too. I love Will, but he told me one time, you are the product of the books that you read and the podcasts that you listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really fully understand what that meant, but you can't really control the outcome of too many things, but you can control how much you educate yourself and how
Right.
much you commit to listening. And I promise you, and Noreen and I are both examples of this. If you commit to listening to this podcast every single day for the next year, your business will grow. Your business will grow. And I don't know why that is, but like your paradigm shifts, your perspective shifts, you start to see things a little bit differently and stuff starts happening. So commit
And
to
your
reading.
library grows.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of good books.
That's right. That's right. Well, I really, really appreciate Noreen. I would let's do this again. I'd love to catch up in maybe 6 months or so and just kind of see where you're at with things.
Sure. Sounds
Enjoy
great.
your
Thank you.
enjoy your vacation.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.